welcome back to Mr. Obsolete's Vintage Homesteading. Today I'm going to be working on our Hot Rod Pro-Mac 610 McCulloch that was donated to the cause here by Smitty from Smitty's Chainsaws and Firewood channel. So this is the way it came, just exactly like this. And so we're going to go through the mods we're going to do on it. So another video when I first did it, when I first unboxed it, I talked about the air filter. These look cute, but they don't work with beans. So we got that, and you can actually see the sawdust inside of it when he was running it. And I showed that we got this nice unifilter here to put on here. Foam sock. These are really, really efficient. So the other thing we're going to do is we're going to take the chain brake off it, take a little weight off it, because that's always what the weenies got to whine about on the Model 610 is, oh, it's too heavy. Anyway, so we'll start with that. And this is a modification I didn't come up with. I saw it on another video, but it makes sense and it's simple to do. Take the screw out here. Take the handle off. So the next thing we can do is take off the cover here. And there you can see there's the strap for the chain brake. So when I first ran it, I could hear that the clutch was dry here, so I'm going to take that off and lubricate it real quick. I'll have to get some tools to come back on that. Okay, well, the clutch is on here tight, and so I had to use a punch and a hammer to get it knocked loose. Just been over tightened it a little bit, but to keep the crank from turning, take the spark plug out and you put the rope down inside the cylinder, and then roll it up against the rope and give it a slight tap there, and it came right loose. So they make some special tools that thread into the spark plug, and I actually have one, but it's made out of metal and I don't use them. And the reason for that, the spark plugs are usually at a little bit of an angle and it's rounded on the tip, and so when it's up against the top of the piston, it's only just in a very small area. And so what happens when you start tapping on this to get the clutch loose or something like that, imparts a load right on that part of the piston and can actually put a divot in it. And they also make them out of a nylon type material, which is a whole lot better, but best is old style and just use the rope. So anyway, get that all pulled out of there. This is a brand new clutch assembly I sent him. It says assembled in Mexico. So it was the very last year that McCulloch was in business, 1999. So we'll take off the drum here, that's also new. And the bearing, there's no lube on the bearing, it was just a little oil, which isn't adequate. And then right here, when you got this apart, I'm going to clean this whole area up, and there's also a thrust washer that goes on here. There's two of them, there should only be one. Anyway, that protects the crap from getting around the crank seal. So that's good. And while we got it off, since this has a manual oiler, and the oil comes out right up in here, you can check that and see, oh yeah, all that oil comes right through, so you know the port through the oil pump and the hand pump there are all clear. So that doesn't need to be serviced. So anyway, the other thing too is this sprocket here is worn, so I'm going to replace that. I don't have any at the moment, so I've got to go get some. So anyway, when I was talking about greasing the clutch bearing here, I've used for years the heavy duty drum brake grease. It was long fibers for heavy duty trucks and machinery and stuff like that, because drum brakes build a lot of heat, and so it would liquefy the grease, and so they made this special heavy duty stuff. They also don't make it anymore. So I was looking on different sites, and Stay Lube, who originally made the long fiber grease like I use, makes a short fiber grease based for the same application. So as soon as I find some, I'll give it a road test and see if it works as good as the other stuff. So anyway, I'll get this greased and put back together. I'll be right back. Okay, well, you can see this grease is really sticky, like I say, long fiber. So you cut this and you push it down through the bearings, the needles. Make sure you get it coated completely all the way around. You take the excess, and a screwdriver, and you squeeze it into the inside part of the drum all the way around, so you have a nice layer of that too. So anyway, I'll get that done and be right back. Okay, well, we've got the bearing all packed with grease. So the thrust washer here, I'm going to put a light coating of that on there. And it's clean there, so we put this back on. And put the bearing in here. Take the excess grease off. Put some on the shaft here a little bit and around that. Since we're not going to be running it today, I'm not going to put this all back together, because I want to get the new sprocket and whatnot for it, but still got some more stuff to show you here. So anyway, put the nut and sit on there for now. Well, I'm going to call it the backwards thread, left-hand thread, so when you're taking it off, be careful. So the other things we're going to do to it, and one main thing that's going to improve it here, use a clutch cover off a Pro-Mac 700 or a 1010, and then the exhaust will be right out in the open here, and you can see it has a deflector here. What I would do originally is the exhaust would come up and hit this, and then I'd blow it down and come out these ports right here. But I'm going to make a little plate muffler so it blows out. And somewhere I've hidden from myself, I actually have a tuned expansion chamber off a McCulloch go-kart engine. I'll put on it eventually. But anyway, the other things we're going to do, so put that on there. I want to talk just briefly about spark plugs. I had a Champion spark plug in it, and I won't use them in anything, even though this thing ran. A lot of saws I worked on for people over the years and brought them in, and you know, pull the plug out and check for spark, no spark, put a decent plug on it and start right up. So anyway, I'll talk more about those why I don't use them. This is an NGK, so I use NGK, Denso, and Bosch plugs. So this is an NGK, so I'll put that in. And the other thing you want to do is clean your bar plates. Now the bar I'm going to use is kind of a weird piece. It's an Oregon bar. It must be out of the early 80s, because if you look at it real closely, you see the taper on its different from this side. This is pretty sharp taper, and then this has got a long taper and stuff. That was what was called a banana bar, and the idea behind it is that it helps on low kickback. So, you know, for consumer saws, homeowner saws, weenie saws. It has a weenie cutter chain on it, you know, safety chain. So you had two features, anti-kickback, so, you know, a lot of people, it saved them from getting hurt that didn't know how to operate a chainsaw. Then the other thing is that there's a bit of a ridge on it, so I'm going to have to do a bar cleanup on it. Not real bad, but it must have been cutting a little bit crooked, I'm going to bet, because it's got more of a wear on this and more metal folded over on this side than it does this. And this sprocket tip turns nice and free, so that'll be fine. So anyway, the chain is a full tilt chain, standard 3/8 050. You can see the teeth are almost new on it, so that'll be good. So anyway, for our next installment, that's what we'll do. Get the bar done and get the chain on it and get it sharpened up. And okay, well, the other thing we're going to do is put this clutch cover on. I tried it earlier and it didn't go, but had a big hunk of junk in the back side of it here and kept it from going on. So anyway, get it lined up here. Goes right on, so stick the bar on, give you an idea what it's going to look like here. I think that looks a whole lot better than the stock cover. Anyway, and the other thing too, once we get it running, we're going to have a full week of freezing, and the stump that I want to cut on, do some cookies on it to help break in the saw, has been frozen solid, so cutting frozen wood doesn't work very good. So anyway, we'll see how the week goes. So maybe next video we'll have this up and cutting, maybe not. And so, unfortunately, today I'm not going to run it, so you're just going to have to imagine. Vroom, 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 vroom. Isn't that exciting? Well, next is going to be BS, and it's going to be talking about getting ready for spring here, spring chores and jobs around the place. So, be right back. Well, we're back for some more spring tune-up. So, still pretty much middle of winter, but we've had a little bit of break in the weather, and even the buds are starting to come out on the trees and whatnot. So, the compost pile really slows down. You know, it doesn't get a lot of stuff on it over the winter, food scraps and stuff, but you can see that the leaves in here haven't really broken down real thoroughly and stuff. And the thing I find better than anything is grass clippings. In the next 2 or 3 weeks we'll be mowing, so I'll have that. But so what we're going to do today to get this going, first thing we're going to do is put on some compost fortifier, and it's 332. So I'm going to put a little layer of that on here. Doesn't take much. And then we're going to put some more leaves on. These are the leaves I took off the grape plant. Up there, and I took a picture of it, we'll show you. So these are broken down pretty good, but the thing that's weird this year, almost every year I can remember that the leaves just dried up and blew off, but they stayed on the stems this year. But anyway, they're on their way to being broken down pretty good. And the last thing we're going to put on is some straw that I ran through the shredder. You don't need very much. This takes a long time to break down, but what we want is the stuff to take a while to break down, so when we're ready to use it, we'll have a lot of nutrients in it. Well, in years past I always used a pitchfork to turn this stuff and break it in. But last year some really kind and generous people gave us a little Mantis Tiller. I know it ain't vintage, but hey, it was free and had very little use on it, so they weren't mechanically inclined. I didn't want to take it to a shop. And thing is that if you do take it to a shop, I think at the time it was sold as about $450, and if you take it into a shop, they're going to go through the carburetor and tune it up and stuff, and you're going to be out $125 on it, so basically a fourth of the price. So anyway, they just decided they didn't want it, and so they gave it to me. So anyway, we'll fire it up here and we'll come over and show you what a nice job it does. Well, when you take care of your equipment, usually in the spring they'll start right up, and this thing I bet will start on the second pull. So do the purge valve, pull on the choke, turn on the ignition, and see what happens. See how nice that is? That's a lot nicer and finer. So we'll get some grass on it here in the next few weeks and it should take right off. One other thing I was going to talk briefly about. Are shovels. Scoop some of this back in here. Yeah, your typical cheapo Chinese shovels. Yeah, I paid about $12, $15 for them. And the wooden handles are made out of stuff that wouldn't even make good firewood. And the steel in them is no good either. Flex them, they crack. The edge won't hold. This is an Ames, which has been around forever. And it's made in the US and it's made out of really good steel. Thing is, you'll pay 2 to 3 times the price of a cheap one. Given good care, it'll last you forever. So even though I'm thrifty or cheap, sometimes it's better to pay more to begin with. And it's cheap in the long run. Got one more thing coming right up here. Well, the next thing it needs to tune up is our kindling splitter. I've done several videos and talked about this. And the wood that we have, a lot of it's different types of trees that will pick up rocks like cottonwood and stuff and be embedded into the wood, and it gets little divots on the face here. Now this axe head, I bought it at a junk teak store for $2 and it was really rusty, and I thought, well, it's old, it's got to be good. Well, it's old, but it's really not very good. Doesn't hold an edge hardly at all, but fortunately for this, we don't need a real sharp edge on it. But I like to take the divots out a little bit and once a year give it a minor clean up on the... But yeah, you can see right there the shiny spots are where the little flats are. So anyway, I'll get this set here. And the file, I did a video on how to sharpen these. This is a Simmons file. I don't think they're in business anymore, but this is really a high quality file. And you know, I sharpened them recently, so but just to show you how easy this thing is to sharpen. You see that nice face on there. On that corner here. I'm going to turn around and do the other side. So there's one divot right there, a little bit there, but just a few more and it'll be completely done. There we go. Completely done. So that'll make it split wood a lot better. Okay, well, we got it nice and cleaned up there. Like I say, it don't need to be real sharp. See, just but for splitting kindling, that's perfect.